All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live. I am coming on to talk with you about how to stop being so hard on yourself at work. Now, if you are newer to me or my community, I am Melody Wilding. I am author of this book right here called Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking and Channel Your Emotions for Success at Work. I am a executive coach to people I call sensitive strivers, high achievers who think and feel everything more deeply than most people. I am a licensed social worker, professor of human behavior, and the creator of a program called Resilient, which helps sensitive strivers, hopefully like you watching this, regain their confidence, master their emotions, and reach their full potential in the workplace. And Resilient is open for early bird enrollment now, which I'll give you more details about towards the end of this. But if you are watching live, say hello so that I know you are here. If you are catching this on the replay, also type in here so I know to shout you out as well. And as I am going along, please do type in your questions, your comments. Let me know what is resonating with you. I would love to know that you're here and to continue this conversation. And if you would be so kind, give this video a like. Every single one goes a very long way to making sure that others can see this video and get that information. So, if you are here, then this topic of being hard on yourself probably resonated with you very deeply. And I want to tell you a quick story about one of my clients to help you know that you are far from alone in this. So it's about one of my clients who I will call Brianna, who was a member of our Resilient program. And Brianna was a research director at a pharmaceutical company. And she had a situation that happened at work that she told me about. She one day had a run-in with the CEO that she told me that day that I just can't get this out of my head. I am so hooked on this situation and what happened. I can't get it out of my head. So it turns out what had happened is that earlier that day, Brianna had gone to the break room to grab some snacks for her colleagues. Someone had brought in donuts or something like that, and she was going there to grab a few of them to bring them into a meeting that she was heading into, right? Perfectly normal and very kind thing to do for your colleagues. Well, on her way out of the break room down to the meeting room, she ran into the CEO of the company who said, "Wow, Brianna, looks like you're really helping yourself today." Like she was treating herself and all of those donuts were for her. And Brianna just had this pit in her stomach. And in the moment, she was so taken aback. She didn't know what to do. She just kind of nervously laughed and said, yeah, uh-huh, and kept walking because she was so flustered, as happens for us sensitive people when we're put on the spot. We tend to get very overstimulated very easily. But after this situation, Brianna could not get this out of her head for days. She was so preoccupied by the incident, just finding herself reeling about it, and she couldn't quit beating herself up. She felt like she had done something wrong. Why hadn't she taken a different route? Why didn't she correct the CEO and stand up for herself when he said that to her? All of these different things were running through her head, and she was just being so critical. And so I share this story because it's a very common example of what happens, especially to sensitive strivers who tend to be so self-critical. We as sensitive strivers expect excellence from ourselves at all times. And when we fall short, that's when we fall into this cycle of self-recrimination, right? So if you have ever had this reaction, then you too are probably also very hard on yourself. And that may take the form of harsh judgments about yourself, overanalyzing and being preoccupied with your thoughts, ruminating over minor mistakes or missteps, feeling worried, assuming fault for situations that were actually out of your control or actually not your fault in the first place. So, what's interesting about self-criticism is that although we don't like it, I can't tell you how many people tell me that they wouldn't be who they are without it. What they think, especially sensitive strivers, is that their self criticism is what motivates them. That is this form of motivation that compels them to perform. And without that, they would lose their edge. I want to I want to correct rather that misperception right now. Self criticism is a very poor strategy for motivation. And I'm not just telling you this from my experience, the research bears this out time and time again. When we excessively use self criticism, we have less motivation, we have worse self control, we struggle with greater procrastination. I'm sure you've seen this in your own life, right? And all of this is because self criticism shifts your brain into a state of inhibition, which means that your mind is almost paralyzed from acting because it feels as if you're under a threat, that it's unsafe. So being hard on yourself, it's very ineffective, but I also realize that this is a very hard habit to break. And I'm going to give you some tips today to do that. But I want to tell you that this takes consistent practice, it takes consistent attention. So, as much as I wish there were an easy button and the strategies today I'm going to give you will help with that, this does take consistent practice on your part. So I want to share with you some of those strategies that I shared with Brianna so that you for yourself can reach more balance and confidence in yourself in the workplace. So tip number one is to avoid generalization. So when I was talking with Brianna and I pressed her for details about what happened with the CEO that time in the hallway, it was clear that even afterwards, the CEO wasn't thinking about their interaction. It wasn't this kind of momentous situation that Brianna was making it out to be. So this was a very clear example for her of something called the spotlight effect, which is a phenomenon in psychology where we feel as if we have a spotlight on ourselves at all times, that the light is shining down on us and everyone can see our flaws. They can see the stain on our shirt. They can see the typo we made on a slide. And it's just as all of that is bearing down. So we tend to misjudge and overestimate our flaws and inadequacies and think people are paying much more attention to our behavior than we think. And newsflash, you have a spotlight on yourself, but everyone else has a spotlight on themselves. So you may think everyone is paying attention to you, but really they are in their own heads as well, worrying about the email they have to send or the next meeting or something that's happening at home. So people are paying far less attention to us than we think. But to avoid this idea of generalization, what I want you to consider is broadening your view to instead of looking at one singular negative event. Brianna was really fixated on this situation that went wrong with the CEO in her mind, rather than taking her performance on aggregate. And that's what I mean by avoiding generalizing one situation to a large pattern, and instead looking at your performance on aggregate. So I like to say, think of your performance a little bit like a bell curve. You may remember that from your math classes back in the day, where most days you're going to perform in the middle of the bell curve, right? In that big portion of the bell curve where you'll be average or above average. Now, some days, on the other hand, may be on the outskirts there, on the tail end, where you just have a really bad day or things don't go as you want. So thinking about your performance on a bell curve can be very helpful to keep the bigger picture in mind. And so this was very helpful for Brianna to realize and unhook herself from just this one situation paralyzing her to realizing that her making mistakes or being misunderstood was not a general pattern. So specifically, if you find yourself falling into this pattern of blowing up singular events and getting very attached to them, I want you to avoid very extreme language. Things like, I always mess up. I never get my voice heard. I never do anything right. This happens every time, right? Those are very categorical statements. They're very all or nothing rather than looking at the gray and the in between. All right. So that is tip number 1, which is avoid generalization. Tip number 2 is to flip the what if. To flip the what if. So, our human mind, it is wired to answer questions and make meaning from situations. And this is especially true if you identify with being a sensitive striver, if you are someone who is a deep thinker and feeler and you expect a lot from yourself, you actually have different neural wiring that actually leads you to have more brain activation in parts of your brain that synthesize information and take meaning from it, that spot nuances, that anticipate eventualities and make decisions. So, sensitive people are shown to have more of this parts of their brain light up when it comes to these internal experiences. So, this means that as a sensitive striver, you have already built inside you tremendous mental depth, but you need to channel it to work for you instead of against you. So many times we get so hooked on and being hard on ourselves about everything that could go wrong. What I want to encourage you to do is flip the what if and consider what could go right in equal measure. So instead of what if the senior leadership hates my idea, what if they love my presentation? Or what if your idea isn't stupid, but it's actually the breakthrough that your team needs to move forward? All right. So that's tip number 2 is flipping the what if. All right. Tip number 3, set a timer and create a goal. This may sound almost too simple, but I promise you that it works. So we know that being hard on yourself, like I said before, can actually inhibit your brain from acting. It leads to ruining your mood, your productivity, your focus. What we also know from the research is that feelings related to being hard on yourself and self-critical, things like shame, humiliation, are actually shown to have not too long of a life. They're only shown to last about 30 to 50 minutes. So you can take advantage of this fact by actually time boxing how you process your feelings. So really simply what you can do, set a timer for 40 minutes and allow yourself during that time, that is your full permission to feel awful and self-flagellate and beat yourself up and just process those emotions, get them through you so that you can get beyond them. Because if you try to ignore them, that's not going to work. They're going to come up stronger than before. So allow yourself to fully process. Many times I will have my clients do what's called release writing, where for 3 to 5 minutes, you just brain dump down everything that is in your head and just get it out, stream of consciousness style. When the timer is up, this is important. Now it is time to be intentional about how you want to move forward. Define how you want to feel. Pick a feeling goal. Do you want to feel contentment, inner peace, confidence, assuredness, joy? Whatever it may be for you, pick the way you want to feel and determine an action that is going to get you closer to feeling that way. So if you want to feel calm or peaceful, maybe you do a short meditation or you decide to get up and take a walk, for example. All right. So that is tip number 3, which is set a timer and create a goal. And number 4, our last tip today, is to expand your definition of success. As a sensitive striver, you probably have the definition of achievement as hyper-specific, complete and total excellence and perfection at all times, right? So I don't want to tell you that you have to lower your bar, but you do need to broaden your scope of what it means to have a win, to be doing well at work. So achieving your desired outcome isn't always in your control. So it's important you look at other ways you're learning, growing, developing, and doing well. So a win doesn't always have to be, I got my way, the situation was successful, because you can't control that outcome. So broaden that to include things like I overcame some sort of a fear or resistance. I pushed through discomfort. I stood up for what I thought was right. I approached a situation with a different mindset or an attitude than I might have in the past. Or I took one small action step towards a goal. Now, I like to have many of my clients at the end of their workday reflect on what were their professional highlights at the end of the workday. What was praise, recognition, positive reviews. But don't forget to look at also the moments where you made yourself proud. Where did you surprise yourself or act in integrity with your values? So, as a sensitive striver, your desire to be the best is a tremendous asset, but you have to manage it correctly. So, our tips for today for not being so hard on yourself at work: avoid generalization, flip the what if, set a timer and a goal, and expand your definition of success. So, in the comments now, I want to know what is resonating with you. Which of these techniques will you try? Will you avoid generalization? Will you flip the what if narrative? Will you set a timer and a goal? How will you expand your definition of success? So, if you are someone who is listening to this and is thinking, I want more support with overcoming my self criticism at work, I know it is getting in my way. And like I said earlier, this is a hard pattern to overcome. And I want you to realize that you are not broken and that it is completely possible to break free and find relief from the self doubt, the overthinking that holds you back from making the impact that you're meant to at work. And I know because the hundreds of sensitive strivers who have gone through Resilient are evidence that it is also possible. And I'll read you what one of them had to say, who said, "This program changed the course of my life. I was on such an unhealthy path of self-doubt and negativity before Resilient. Now that I have completed the program, I have a positive outlook and a level of pride I haven't felt in years. Thank you." This is what I want for you too. And there's great news. Resilient is open for early enrollment right now for just a few more days. This is your time to secure your spot. They are going fast, and to get $300 off the regular enrollment price. This is the last time I will be opening the program this year. And this is for you if you are a sensitive striver who wants to break free from overwhelm at work. You want to regain your confidence. You want to get out of your own way. And over the course of 90 days, we are going to give you tools and strategies, and you're going to get a community of support to help you with that. So we get started on August 16th, and I hope to see you there. You can find details at the link here, and I'll also make sure to put it in the chat. Okay, everyone, I can't wait to hear from you. Take care.